couldn't have said it better myself.
This episode of Lords of the Storm is brought to you by our sponsors over at Patreon, where you, yes you, can also support the show. Just head over to patreon.com/Lords of the Storm to become a patron today.
Heroes, gather tribute and earn my favor. What do you say? Are you ready to begin?
Oh, why, yes we are. Thank you there, Mr. Ravenlord. Sir, my name is Greg Gizmozord Parker. You are listening to Lords of the Storm, episode 132, the weekly Heroes of the Storm podcast for you, the true heroes of the storm. I'm joined tonight, of course, by the Zord Lords themselves, Mr. Kevin Multizord Ellis and Ryan TBK Zord Reader. And on this week's episode, well, we got a little bit to talk about here. We got the latest on Blizzard news, some changes coming to AI. What? They're going to be at EGX. We're also going to get into a special interview that we had the pleasure of doing with Mr. Mike Udall, making his return to Lords of the Storm, as well as talking about Kel'Thuzad in this week's Hero of the Week. But first, before we get into the fun stuff, let's see how the other Zords are doing. Multi, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, but I'm kind of worried now. So what are these AI changes you're talking about? Like, are we finally welcoming our AI overlords? Like, am I going to wake up to a totally different world tomorrow?
Yes.
No,
freaking out,
not tomorrow.
I guess that Deep Mind project went really well. Are they winning in StarCraft now? Is the top HGC team going to be AI now?
Yes.
I just got to know.
Okay. You can actually...
I hope so.
Yeah, you can actually, with the new iPhones coming out, you can plug yourself into the phone with your facial recognition and upload your consciousness into Heroes of the Storm. That way you can improve against yourself.
Ooh. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely brilliant.
Like it.
Okay. Well, count me in. I'm not scared anymore.
All right, TPK, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing wonderfully.
Fantastic.
That's all there is to it.
There you go.
I'm doing pretty good.
All right.
Thanks for asking.
What have you guys been up to in gaming this week, TBK?
Heroes. Then I played some more Heroes, and then I played some more Heroes. Then I lost a bunch of Heroes, but then I won a bunch of Heroes.
Okay.
So that's good. I finally come to a consensus about the reworks. I finally got my thoughts together, and I still have not played Chromie. I don't intend to play Chromie. I never played Chromie, and so that was that's just kind of a wash. I absolutely love New Leoric. He is so much fun. He's so much less like one note than he was before. Mm-hmm. He's got a few different builds you can do. I'm just having like total blast with him. New Jaina, awesome. Mm-hmm. Like all the tweaks they made, just so good. Then there's Morales, and I've come to the conclusion that I like what they're trying to do, and I like a lot of the new stuff, but the numbers just aren't where they should be right now, and she feels very awkward to play, especially at high levels. And I think the whole root of the problem is the energy regen. It's just extremely awkward.
Yeah.
Like actually pausing for it.
Yeah, it's like sometimes
the right timing.
Like sometimes it's to a point now where you have to just stop healing, like in the middle of a big team fight, and just be like, la-di-da-di-da. And you don't want to start healing again just a tiny bit with your first little bit of energy you get back.
Yeah.
Because
then it's another 3 seconds.
3 seconds. Yeah. So sometimes it's just like, well, okay, who am I going to let die while my energy bar regens so that I can heal somebody else? And you really shouldn't ever have to do that.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome, though? The feeling of knowing that their life is in your hands. And
It's
you
true.
can choose who lives and who dies. Like, I love that stuff.
I was thinking about it for no reason whatsoever because I don't play Morales, but because we had been having this discussion on the 3-second pause, if that's too long, too much, how the energy works. And I was thinking about what if they made it. It's probably, I'm sure they could probably do it in game, but the energy, instead of it being a constant energy spend, either the longer you're channeled on a specific target, the more energy it burns faster, or the lower health they have, the more energy it burns. Because that way it could, you can rotate between targets potentially to kind of slow some of the energy burn.
Yeah.
Or it's just something to counter this awkward 3-second pause.
I think it would make that, or something along those lines, would make her feel a little more like she did before, because I know they wanted to just stop the endless Morales can heal forever spam, but now you really can't. You're almost punished for switching targets.
Yeah.
Now, which really, really sucks, because that's completely opposite of her entire play style before. Which is, if it's a new hero, that's fine, but if you're trying to do a rework but keep the similar feel of the character, then that really didn't happen, right? And so I don't think it's a kit problem. I think it's like a numbers energy management tweaks that need to be done.
Yeah.
As far as what they've done to her kit for reworks and stuff, I really like the direction. It makes her more active. There's more stuff going on. There's some cool grenade talents. There's different stuff Safeguard does. Medevac got some cool new options. So, I mean, overall, I like it, but it just feels awkward right now. So I'm hoping we see some tuning in that end. And as Captain Logan in chat pointed out, Lucio has kind of been brought back in, and we're starting to see him a lot more lately because he got some huge health buffs. And what do you know? When you buff a squishy character's health, they can survive longer.
And his health regen, which, I mean, he constantly regens health if you've got that song playing. So, it actually adds up quite a bit. So,
yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
Okay.
I finally landed on my rework thoughts. But overall, big thumbs up, Blizzard. It's good stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree on the Jaina changes. I do like the Chromie changes now, and Leoric I need to play more of, but I like what I've seen so far.
It's so fun.
Okay, well, how about you? What have you been up to in gaming this past week?
So I squeezed in some heroes. It's been kind of a crazy week at work, so just kind of done what I can, both with heroes and little Hearthstone occasionally, of course. By the way, join Team Void if you're doing this whole Twitch Prime thing. Just Team Void. That's my PSA for everybody. Otherwise, I have played a little bit of World of Warcraft lately. Not a ton, but just the Argus stuff is so cool. And it's also a game that I can just kind of sit down to really short sessions with and just never feel bad if I have to just get up and go, because I'm not really raiding or doing anything like that. Just kind of going around, checking out Argus, doing some of the quest line and that sort of thing. So that's been kind of refreshing to just kind of chill and do that and not have to worry about, my energy meter on Morales sometimes. So, but yep, I agree with a lot with what you said there, TBK. I guess for me on Morales, just to throw in my 2 cents, the most fun I have playing her is switching targets with the healing beam, in the thick of a super big group fight.
Sure.
Just barely picking up that assassin that was just about to die.
That's part of the management, right? Is the priorities, the character priority of how you're going to heal, and it's this new form as it is kind of punishes that.
Yep, and I love your idea, Gizmo, for specifically the longer you're healing on a target, the more energy you eat up. They could maybe even built it into a talent, right? So the talent is, if you've been healing for less than 3 seconds on a particular hero, you just don't spend as much energy or something like that. I don't know. It could be. There's so many options for it.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
But no, it's been good.
Okay.
Heroes, I mean.
For myself, I haven't had as much opportunity to game this past week. I did start my new job. Nothing exciting, just a little thing for now.
It's money.
It's a job. It's
Money's
money.
Good.
Yes.
Money's good.
So I've been a little distracted by that, but I've been spending some more time watching streams than usual since I haven't been able to play. I've been having to get stuff ready for the podcast, and I want to give a shout out to actually one of our listeners, Chillrog, who also plays in the Open Division. I can't remember team name now. I should have that, but check out his stream. I would definitely suggest it. It's a lot along the lines, I would say, I don't want to compare it, but along the lines of, say, like a Kyle Ferguson stream where he does a really good job kind of explaining what it is he's doing, what his team should be doing, when to pick up camps, when to rotate to objective, things like that. So it's just a really good informational stream to watch. He does a good job. But without further ado, let's go ahead, get on into the store sales. TBK, what do you have going for the weekly collection update?
Oh, this is actually a pretty big one this week. Valir Tyke Azul, all on sale for gems if you haven't picked those guys up. Demon Hunter Valera, which very cool skin. Vespin Queen of Ghost Kerrigan, which is the green version of her legendary skin. Bone Necromancer Zul, High Lord Alarak, Marshal Raynor, Iron Spellbreaker Johanna, Cursed Hunter Greymane, Toxic Ember Lord Zul'jin, and Bluefish Landwalker Murky. These are all such ridiculous names.
Yes.
And they're all pretty darn good skins. All the skins that are on sale.
Yeah, and there's also the Frozen Crimson Hare, which, as we have mentioned before, is not a hare. It's actually a horse. And it's blue, and it's got glowy feet, so that looks pretty cool. The Saddled Battle Beast, which is the generic Battle Beast, and the Hellboar, which came with the Samuro skin
bundle
back when he was released. Mm-hmm.
That one actually is pretty cool. I don't know if I have that one.
It is. It's the generic Saddled Battle Beast, but I will say, if you guys haven't given these an opportunity since 2.0 came out, they do look a lot better. But
nothing like a saddled battle.
Saddle battle on a beast.
Yep.
It's the best way to go.
That's right.
All right, Multi, what do we got for the free hero rotation?
Well, in the free hero rotation, we've got a robot saddled on the back of a goblin, I guess, in Gazlo. He's in there. Hashtag least favorite character in the game. We've got also Thrall, the war chief, and Malfurion. I guess he's a druid or something. And then a couple other people from Warcraft. So we got Lunara jumping around, throwing stuff at people. You can jump around a little bit on Vala too, but you're not really throwing stuff, you're shooting them. But you can kind of do the same role, right? And then we got some tanks thrown in there in Dehaka, Anubarak, Leoric with the rework guys. Jump in there, get some Leoric going. And Johanna, so you can try out that sweet new skin that's on that list we just listed off there. Actually, I keep forgetting how awesome that skin is. Maybe I need to pick it up. Regardless, all right. So we got Zeratul at 5. Tracer herself at 10. And then, of course, Tracer's main counter, Abathur at 15. That is a fact. And for the first time in the free rotation, at least as far as I'm concerned, is Garrosh at level 20. So if you guys haven't chucked people around yet, then do it.
All right. You bring up an interesting point here. Question for you all. Is Gazlo... Is that a robot riding Gazlo controlling Gazlo, or is that Gazlo carrying a robot controlling the robot?
Dude, you're getting me back into that whole AI.
Yeah, maybe with the AI update, it's now
the robot
controlling Gazlo. Even though Gazlo controlled the robot before.
2 years and we're all going to be wearing robots like that. Just wait. It's true.
The robots are just going to be wearing us. They're going to be wearing us.
Yeah, right. I stand corrected. Yes.
All right. I want to give a quick patron updates here. Special shout out to a new patron that we have, Temujin C. I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly, but I tried. And also from last week, Laughing Boulder, you have earned your Zord title, sir. You have been deemed worthy of bearing the Zord title. Welcome to the Zord Lords. Boulder Zord, welcome to the Zord Lords, sir. Thank you both again for your support of the show. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully, not hopefully, it does enable us to continue to try and make this show the best it can be. Now let's hop into the news. All right, so first up, Blizzard is opening a dedicated esports venue in Burbank. This will be opening up this fall. It will be in Los Angeles, and it's going to be open to the public starting on October 7th with the Overwatch Contenders Season 1 playoffs being the very first event held there. It is actually going to have, from my understanding, multiple stages and practice rooms, things like that, to be hosting multiple events at once. This will not replace the events that happen during BlizzCon, but it's going to be a nice place to have year-round LANs that they do. So really cool things for that, and I'm hoping to be able to check that out here. Maybe when I'm in town for BlizzCon. Who knows? Maybe I don't know how far away it's going to be.
Can we just move there? Like, we could do that, right? You just sell your house or stop paying rent and just go, don't you?
Yeah. You don't even need to find another job. You just move.
Yeah,
I did that once to Chicago. It was totally worth it.
Yep.
I'll take one of the rooms, and we can do. We'll just have like, hey, you guys don't need this stage. You have a couple others. Can this just be like the Lords of the Storm stage? We can do lots of stuff there.
That's right.
Lots of things.
Sleep there.
I'm down.
Okay. Sounds good. No, but this is seriously so exciting. Like, again, I mean, this is just another sign that Blizzard is really putting their just both feet into esports at this point. And I mean, who even knows what's going to come out of this? I can't wait to see it in some of the first instances here. They're going to do the actually the Hearthstone Summer Championship tour there as well. So I don't know. It's going to be good. It's going to be good
for sure. And I imagine we'll see either one of the Western clashes or something coming up there before.
That would be cool if there was a Western clash there. I mean, it's kind of the first step towards what Riot has with LCS, and they've got their own little arena LAN area on site. So Blizzard is kind of taking steps towards that, and there's just a lot more games that have the potential to be played there.
Yeah, and I haven't seen any pictures. I don't know if there's been pictures released as far as layout or size, anything like that. But I do imagine from seeing a lot of their sets that it is going to be pretty top of the line and just a neat place. Also coming along a few days ago, the BlizzCon goodie bag was revealed. And it is indeed a bag. So we've gotten bags.
Yeah, it's a backpack.
Last year we didn't get a bag. The year before that we got the cool messenger bag to carry around. This is just a black backpack that says BlizzCon on it, has Velcro stuff. Overall, it kind of seems like this bag is leaning more towards Overwatch stuff, but that could potentially be just what people were pulling out of their random stuff.
No, they've actually renamed BlizzCon to Overwatch Con.
Yeah.
And every single piece, almost every single piece in this entire bag is Overwatch related.
Yeah. So
it almost was Overwatch Con last year, in all fairness, just with the hype that you saw and just the cosplay and the shirts even people were wearing. But
I mean, it's hard to top last year's box, though.
I mean, the year before last year,
10-year anniversary Stein.
That's true.
Well, yeah, you can't top that. But I mean, that's a once in every decade thing, right? I mean, if we go back to BlizzCon 20, we'll get something crazy. But in the meantime, so like a lot of the complaints about this has been just that it's a little lackluster. But I mean, it's
really missing that big item that should be Heroes of the Storm related.
Yeah,
kind of true. Because we've got the Zool pin is in one of these openings I've seen at least. But that's, I mean, yes, that's Heroes of the Storm, but it's also kind of Diablo. So.
Here's an idea, Blizzard, either for next year's goodie bag or just to put on your store, because I want one. We got one of the cool, like, reversible WoW coasters, rubber coasters. That's Alliance and Horde on both sides. I want a Nexicon coaster, rubber coaster.
I like that idea. Yeah, I like it.
But so this bag is going to contain the backpack, like a keychain thing for the backpack, a couple mini figurines, one of the collectible pins, and then some patches. So the actual outside of this backpack, there's like a square on it that's Velcro, and these patches you can stick to it. I probably wouldn't suggest sticking to those at BlizzCon because that seems like something that's real easy for somebody to just rip those off, because those are probably going to be one of the collectible things. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, a little.
If you ever see a guy go by with like all Overwatch symbols and there's like 20 of them, he's a thief.
You, sir. Watch it. They're going to be like trying to catch him. He's like, "What? I just bought all these. You guys are jerks."
I bought 20 virtual tickets.
Yeah,
just for the Overwatch Velcro pins.
But yeah, they're cool bags. A little lackluster from the previous years, but I don't go to BlizzCon for the bag. It's just a bonus. So that's the way I look at it.
And it's a backpack. Backpacks are cool. Now you don't have to bring a backpack.
True.
It's true. I mean, I'll still bring one because I
Now you can
bring one.
wear 2 backpacks.
That's true. I can wear a backpack and then my messenger bag. That's typically
what
I do.
Go.
You got a front packet too.
Yeah, that's true. It's
fanny pack.
I can get 2 messenger bags, 2 backpacks. There we go.
I can wear my backpack and my messenger bag and my fanny pack.
That guy who bought 20 of them for the Overwatch stickers, this is what he looks like, pretty much, just covered head to toe.
Yeah. All right. So also coming up here, EGX, which I believe, I'm not from the UK, but it is the largest gaming event in the UK. Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch will both be at EGX. So I imagine we can this is in a little under 2 weeks. So this is the interesting thing here. With the talk from Alan and stuff about them possibly slowing down hero releases, is it going to be another 2 weeks before we hear about a new hero that will be announced at this event? Or are they saving something else?
It does specifically say Overwatch and Heroes.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that we'll probably get the next hero announcement, or at least the next hero tease at the event.
Yep. That's what it seems like. But there's going to be a Heroes of the Dorm showdown. They've done some of those before. Yogscast will be streaming the game live, which if you don't know those guys, you should. They're really cool. And it features, Terpsters on Yogscast from the instance. So,
dude, cracks me up. So I'm down.
He is good.
I think
I want him to host the BlizzCon one year. I think he'd be a good host. We've had, we've had some issues with some of the celebrities coming in, people not liking them. I think Terpster would do really well.
He already does a bunch of stuff for him, so why not?
He does.
He just did a ton of stuff for Gamescom, right? So, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you caught it. It's one of the links in our agenda there. So just a quick note. The virtual ticket is up and running right now, too, for BlizzCon. Just came out today. There was a little bit of a stream that went on earlier on Twitch, so you guys can go back and watch that. They've got some interesting video content that's come out with that already. There was a super interesting video on Into the Blizzard Vault that you guys could check out, where they go in, you actually follow Mike Morhaime into like a vault of historical Blizzard artwork and all this other stuff, and they kind of tell you the story behind some of it. So I don't know, it was super sweet. Yeah,
and that's a good catch on that. Thank you. Also, worth mentioning that I did not talk about with the goodie bag, you will be able to, for the first time ever, I believe this year, be able to purchase those on the online store, even if you don't have a virtual ticket.
Interesting.
And then as well, you can upgrade the bag, an epic bag, for like $25 more to get extra pins and stuff like that.
Yeah. And virtual ticket holders get a discount on the boxes.
Yes.
This year.
So that's the incentive then.
That's the incentive.
Yep.
I think.
I dig it.
Okay, so another big thing, we've been talking about all this, AI taking over the world and stuff. Well, they released an article here, Under the Hood AI. Apparently, they are, getting under the hood a little bit and going to be updating how the AI works, making it a little better. They'll be able to stutter step, be able to make better decisions as far as positioning for team fights and escaping, safe its paths, things like that. Mostly, I don't think, if you're listening to a podcast, most of the time you probably don't play AI. However, how this will impact us is disconnects in Hero League or Quick Match, things like that. While it's still AI is not going to be preferable, this should hopefully help out quite a bit with that. I'm hoping they'll be more attentive to reacting to pings and things like that. They're supposed to, if you're playing an AI game, help team, your human players on your team more than just the AI players on your team. So that should help on things like Brax's Holdout, which I've mentioned before is just absolutely awful to play in an AI match. TBK, you got any thoughts on what potentially this could change for, PvP instead of just PvE?
So there's quite a bit of stuff. So for the more technically inclined people, what they're basically doing with their AI right now is they're moving from a scripted AI to a decision tree AI. And the decision tree AI is going to be a lot better because with the decision tree, the AI can react on the fly and make decisions based on basically like weighted circumstances. So let's say you're on a map. Pushing a lane has a certain weight. Ganking somebody that they see who's out by themselves or too far in a lane has a certain weight. An objective, when it spawns, has a certain weight. So the AI will then be able to smartly decide based on weights between decisions where to go or what to do. And decision trees can also impact, like they have a really cool GIF that they show of a Stitches AI as this player character is coming around the corner. He sees that Vala is about to cast, or he sees Vala casting the Rain of Vengeance. And so he does a friendly helping hand and pulls the human character out of the Rain of Vengeance before it hits him.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So reacting
that's
like
tough
that.
To pull off as a person.
Yeah. And so they said they actually had to, on the lower difficulty AI, they had to drastically limit the update rate. And that's a big change of this. The new AI system runs faster than it did before. And they said this has not only resulted in a slight improvement to the frame rate, just in general, which is cool, but it also has allowed us to update the AI more frequently. AI have faster reaction times, and they can use abilities in rapid succession now, which is really cool. And so much so that they had to lower the update rate for the lower AI to keep them from being too good. But this is all without cheating. The AI still only knows exactly what they can see from a mini-map perspective and from a vision perspective.
It makes me wonder, though, especially looking at this Stitches GIF that you're mentioning, if it's like a full AI match where you're the only human player, if the AI isn't communicating to each other in some way. Because it's polling you before, Reign of Vengeance is actually coming out. But that would be, it's clearly set up in a way to where, if you're a player in that position, that's something, Reign of Vengeance is something you may predict is coming out to help make that decision. So it's an interesting thing. And this is actually, I believe, since Garrosh launched, was the first AI to have this tree. So now Kel'Thuzad as well.
So Ollie, one of the big people in the community, he does the observer layout, the custom observer layout. He has a list of heroes with an AI tree, and it was clarified from one of the heroes programmers that some of them were stubs and not completely using the stuff in the blog post yet. But there are stubs for both Kel'Thuzad and Garrosh, which are fully using the tree, as they mentioned the new tree stuff, as they mentioned in the blog. And then Stitches, Muradin, Lili, Raynor, Stukov, Gazlo, Medivh, Uther, Jaina, and Lunara also have at least stubs, which would make you think they're the ones coming soon. And they haven't said when this will be done completely and what the rollout is, but I would assume most likely you'll see a chunk of heroes done over the next few patches. That's probably,
I imagine so.
That's what I'm assuming.
Especially major patches, like not just the quick hot fixes or anything like that. So, yeah, for me, I mean, I'm definitely excited about this for sure, but it does raise a couple questions. The first one I have is, so presently, or maybe not presently, in the past, in the old system, a lot of times if I knew one of my partners had dropped and it just seemed like a logical laning partner for me, in my mind, the move in just like a quick match setting was to go ahead and alt-click them, ping them, get them to follow you. But now, I mean, if they really are reacting to like a weighted set of circumstances based on ganks, based on lane pressure and all that sort of thing, I'm wondering if it would be wiser just to let them roll. I guess we'll just have to kind of get in there and feel that sort of thing out. And then, so I'll mirror XXL Epic here in the chat and saying that I'm interested in how people react if AI actually outperforms most of the player base. If people will ask for, Blizzard to dumb it down a little bit. Of course, you'd bypass a little bit of that just with the difficulty levels. I mean, a beginner AI is not going to do all of this stuff, but
it really depends what the AI level replacement for disconnects is.
Yes, so that's going to vary drastically. Like if it's the same throughout, you might get an advantage if you're, in bronze, silver, potentially gold, depending on how good the AI is.
Someone DCs.
It might be an advantage for your team. So
thank God that Toronto left.
Yeah. so hopefully there will be some sort of, different levels as far as the refresh rates or reaction times, things like that, based on your, current ranking.
Sure. But guys, we're not mentioning the biggest thing about this. Lord of the Draft is going to get so much more interesting now.
Yes, it is.
I'm very excited. We may wait. We may wait a few patches.
I was just going to say we have to hold off for a set, and then we should only choose from the new ones because
exactly.
Otherwise, I'm drafting Garrosh and Kel'Thuzad right now.
Obviously, yeah.
So you got these two just like god AI players against.
Well, we have to ban them both now. So
yeah. Exactly. So yeah. Once we get a few more patches and we get a rollout, we'll do a special Lord of the Draft with the brand new AI and cast that, and just see the AI, the new AI versus new AI in action, to see how much better they react to things, how much better they play, how much better they work together. Will they do stupid stuff like go wolf bite a 5-man team with nobody else around them?
Will Misha continue to just sacrifice herself over and over again?
Over and over again.
Good.
So I'm excited for this. This got me.
No, this is gonna be awesome. If you're new to the show and you're not sure what we're talking about, so this is something we've done a few times now, where we do a mock draft. Like it'll be TBK against I, for instance. We set up a draft as if we're playing HGC, but then we watch as the AI, like 2 teams of 5 AI, fight it out, and actually ends up being a pretty good time. But yeah, it's gonna be super interesting next time around. You're right. So
I believe we're all 1-1 right now. Is that correct? No, 2. I think we're all 2-1, maybe. I don't remember how many. I don't remember how many we've done.
I think we're all 1-1.
I think we're all 1-1.
Yeah,
and the next one is you guys. I think.
Yep.
I think that's the first rematch.
Yeah.
All right. So that should be plenty of fun. The other thing we want to talk about here for news this week is with a Reddit thread in a response from Blizzard. I'm just going to go ahead and read this real quick. It's a post from Pio Avenger, just titled "Hero League is a Joke." There was a post from a guy named Everyday Fun Hots. It said the first 10 matches of the season are the absolute worst quality matches of the entire season, with most amount of volatility and randomness. Yet those 10 matches have the same effect as about 100 matches on your rank. So there's a little more to that, but I'm going to go directly to the response from Blizz Travis. He's going to say, Heroes doesn't place you lower at the end of placements. Your rank is a direct reflection of your MMR. Beyond the points already noted in this thread, there are a couple things that affect end of season versus start of the season rank that aren't typically considered. The only time that rank is a direct reflection of MMR is right after placements. After that, it'll generally be close. But if you are on a win or loss streak at the end of the season, it can diverge pretty significantly. The start of a season effectively resets your rank to the rank associated with your MMR. MMR, and thus rank, is relative, and the populace gets better at the game every day. You have to not just improve, but improve at a faster rate than everyone around you to increase MMR and rank. This is more noticeable at higher ranks, where the most dedicated players exist, as they continually strive to improve. So,
yeah,
I don't.
Out of all that, my main takeaway, honestly, is just the point that he made about the community getting better at the game, and then thus, like, you have to not only keep up with it but improve faster. I found that very interesting. And that kind of checks out.
Well, yeah, this is a pretty big thread too. Like he talks about, ranks being, normalized at the beginning of season, uncertainty being increased. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, but it's at least they're shedding a little bit more light on how Hero League and stuff currently works, ranking, climbing. I do still hope to hear some updates potentially at BlizzCon on, rank changes.
There's supposed to be a matchmaking update coming. Alan talked about that, and we had it in our interview notes a few episodes ago. So that'll be kind of interesting. And this is one thing, and I would like to get a high level guest on here sometime in the near future to talk about just Heroes knowledge in general, and game difficulty, and what the community needs as a whole and what are the areas we're lacking. And that's we don't have time for that this episode.
Yeah.
That's a massive discussion, and I want to get a very knowledgeable, high level person on that to discuss that with us.
Cool.
The one big thing that stood out to me that was really interesting is down in the thread some. He says there's a lot of variables involved. The order you win and lose games matters, since the effect of the normalization decreases with each game. Winning 7 and then losing 3 is different than losing 3 and then winning 7. The people you play against impact how much MMR you gain losing games. The rank at the end of the season isn't necessarily the rank associated with your MMR, which could be higher or lower. Normalization could mean that even if that was your rank previously, it's not any longer, etc. This is a big question mark to me, because to me it feels like all your placement games should be equally weighted.
I would think.
Whereas what he's saying here is that if I win my first 3 games, I could end up with a vastly different result than if I lost my first 3 games and then won all the other games afterwards.
It makes a little bit of sense to me, because and I've noticed this in my Hero League placements. I haven't begun them this season yet, but it was either last season or the season before. I started out playing plat players. I actually, after winning a couple, was playing like Diamond 5, and then on a losing streak, I went down to Silver and then back up to Gold, and that is like extreme.
Yeah, it's a
like,
lot.
and I imagine that's just because I didn't play a lot in the seasons prior, but that is obviously, if you win your first 3 games, and if I started out playing Plat and then up to Diamond, I think I should be weighted more if I'm winning games against Diamond players than if I, had lost my first 3 games and then began playing Silver Gold players. Obviously, that should be more weighted. I just think the drastic change is too much.
It may make some sense, but at the same time, I don't feel like this feels very good. Just in the way of, what if I get 2 or 3 really crappy games at the start of placements?
Mm-hmm.
Well, crap, I'm screwed. Like, you could, if I don't know what the spread is on this, but I was seeing some discussion about this last season, and this was kind of confirmed as well. But if you're talking several ranking divisions, if you win your first 3 versus if you lose your first 3, it feels like that these first games mean too much then, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd rather the certainty be minimized a little bit and make all 10 of your placements equal as far as placing ranking goes, versus the front end weighted heavier than the back end. Because I understand where that's coming from, but just as a system, and especially the way things are in ranked right now, where it can be very volatile at times, it just feels like it feels more like you have to get lucky to an extent to start off on the right foot.
Yeah, and does
that make sense?
Yeah, well, and that's just with the nature of Heroes of the Storm, it being more team-based. You're right, it doesn't feel good whenever you could just have bad games, because you can't have as much impact in this game as you can other games. And
well, there's always RNG, unless you're rolling with a 5-stack, of course, based on just who you're going to run into and types of comps it rolls out being, and so that's all pretty normal.
And so here's XSL Epic in chat.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect, good example. I went 6-4 last 2 seasons. I placed Diamond 4 when I won the first 4. Last season, lost the first 3 with a 6-4 record, and placed Plat 1.
Yeah, so that's 2 divisions.
So the exact same record, but 2 divisions different, just because of the order you won the game.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So that to me just seems off. I don't know. I could just be on something, but that to me just seems really off.
Mm-hmm.
I know one thing. I haven't done my placements yet for this new season, and I'm now feeling super pressured about those first few. So
that's why I typically wait a week or 2, because it seems more volatile in the first week, especially, and you also just don't know what you're going to get on your team. So I don't know.
Yeah, so it's just interesting information to have, and like I said, I don't really fully understand it, the way it's set up, but I don't necessarily fully agree, I guess, with how it's set up. It just seems like there's too much variability for my first games to mean the difference between 2 full ranks. Because when you're talking 2 full ranks, for most people, let's say like a 52% win rate or something like that, that is a huge amount of extra games you'd have to be to get to the same place. That is, if you had ran with the exact same record, but won the games earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just interesting discussion, interesting to see them and him talk about the system. We'll have that link in the show notes. lordsofthestorm.libsyn.com if you want to go check out. It's a huge full thread. Like I said, we're not going to get super into it, but it's a very interesting read.
Yes.
Yeah. Regardless of how we feel about this, I do love just the peek behind the curtain, to get some true, like, raw information straight from the source on this.
Yeah, it's good for these discussions to have. Like I said, it's more transparency. Whenever they're more transparent, they get more feedback in these threads. They're able to either respond to say why things are that way, and then you can show whether you disagree, agree. Again, just be constructive in these threads, because that's the way that we, can help make change.
It's good. So. It's good dialogue.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good dialogue. So.
And I feel like the thread was pretty good. Like, just scrolling through this even now,
feedback.
A lot of good feedback and a lot of actual discussion instead of just trolling or something. So, yeah.
For sure. We got a lot more to get through, so let's go ahead and move on into the HGC. All right, TPK.
We got some cool stuff. We got some cool stuff. And I know people have been asking for this, and I love when we can get guests on. Sometimes, especially for HGC players or casters or whatnot, scheduling is very hard, especially just lining them up for live podcasts and stuff. So I was like, well, next best thing. And we'll try and do this more in the future, but we were able to get an interview with Mike Udall. Yeah. So we talked to him for a little bit about HGC, about like the current state of HGC, the meta, the current state of the teams. And so we're going to play that for you guys now. Hopefully it's valuable information. Mike was really nice, very candid guy about a lot of the stuff. So there's a lot of good substance.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a second time coming on the show. Just want to give a heads up. He was on his way to a boot camp here, driving in the desert. So there were some connection issues. I had him kind of restate or rehash things if it was hard to understand. But for the most part, everything's fine. But yeah, go ahead and enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special segment of Tournament Talk, or HGC Talk, as it's known now. We have Mike Udall on the line with us, and he's going to take a little bit of time to kind of answer some HGC and Pro Heroes Esports related questions. Mike, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. I know you're on the road right now, heading off to a boot camp, right?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, first off. Yeah, so I'm currently in the car with my girlfriend and Akaface, one of the GFER support players today. We're driving to California, LA. We're going to be boot camping down there at Ulta. It's this like really cool studio where I don't know, I'm pretty hyped about it. I'm excited.
And this is in prep for your Roll20 game this weekend, right?
Yeah, so we have the LAGF match first. So, I mean, that's the match that we're mainly going to be focused on. I know I'm a big advocate for like one match at a time. So that's the main match we're focused on. And then after that, it is Roll20. And if we do win out this weekend, we still will get a bid to BlizzCon, assuming we beat Superstars the following weekend. So it's a really big weekend for us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, we've got a big spectrum of questions. So let's just dive right in real fast. to start things off, I wanted to step back a little bit and ask you how your LAN experience was at Western Clash and what your opinion of Europe was, as I know you played them several times there, and that was like you guys' first big international LAN as your current team.
I mean, I think it was an amazing experience. So for me personally, we got top 4, and that's the best I've ever done at an international LAN. So that's something that I was happy that I'd gotten that far, but I wasn't proud of only achieving that, if that makes sense. Like
sure,
I'm happy that I didn't get out in the first round like we did the first international I went to, but I definitely feel like we left some on the table, if that makes sense. We had some more in the tank. So, I mean, NA compared to EU, I think Fnatic is a different story. So, I mean, Fnatic, in my opinion, is the best team in the world. So I think they're better than everyone, and by like a pretty good margin, as of when we last played them. But I think the rest of EU, at least Expert and Liquid, those were the 2 teams that we played. I definitely feel like the top NA teams are pretty close, actually, to them. I mean, if you saw the Freedom series, they took Liquid to a best of 5. We had a pretty good series versus Expert and Liquid. Where we took games off, like had games where we were definitely leading and kind of threw some leads. They weren't face roll stomps. Like I feel like the first Western Clash was, where I don't think NA won a game, right? I think we all just got 3-0 by the EO teams.
Oh, it was a huge improvement from the first one.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I feel like Fnatic, leaps and bounds. I feel like they're ahead of every team. But once you get to the next EU teams, I'm not sure about Dignitas because they weren't at the Western Clash, and they do look like they're doing really well recently. It looks like they're back into form. But I definitely think I think I'll clump Dig. I think Dig, Expert, and Liquid. I definitely think you'll see NA teams take games off and maybe take the series off of them.
Yeah, I mean that's our hope, right? I mean we're from NA. We want to see NA succeed. So I would love to see some NA crushing of Europe. But I mean you're right. Fnatic is just looking so good right now. So it'll be really interesting to see come BlizzCon, since they just qualified this weekend, if I remember correctly. For that. Yeah, so that'll be really interesting. Gizmo?
Yeah, so we've had you on the show once before here a while back, pre-HGC, but I'm still waiting to see the GFE Udall Zord gamer tag in game, but no, but
one day.
Over this time, how has the scene changed going from pre-HGC to now actually going into HGC, and kind of tied into that? What's your favorite and least favorite thing kind of about that change in the HGC overall right now?
I mean, it's been really interesting for me just watching it all progress. I don't know. I think it's fascinating. I really just think like ecosystems of esports, just like what makes them work, what doesn't make them work, just all fascinates me. And I think HGC, the league, has really, really, really helped HOTS, the esports scene, at least like with consistent viewership and for the pro players as well, like stability wise. So that's something like I want to give huge props to Blizzard and like their esports team, because I feel like they really, for me at least personally as a player, like last year compared to this year, like I feel more like a pro instead of like, okay, every couple months I go to a LAN and, we all kind of hang out and we all get face rolled by Cloud9 and Tempo. I mean, because that's how it kind of used to be. And I feel like you've seen that with the competitiveness, I guess. I feel like having these weekly events, having it much more structured, you don't really have these 2 top tier teams and then like a huge divide. I mean, you have Fnatic in EU that's above everyone else, but outside of Fnatic, everyone in EU is pretty competitive. Like, I don't know how much you guys follow EU, but pretty much like Zealots are up there. Like, there are so many teams. Like Liquid might be facing Crucible, which is crazy, right? They went to the Western Clash.
That's nuts.
And you even look at NA, and I say there's 5 really good teams, and Lagif is doing a lot better than they used to be. But even that's kind of a crazy thought, right? Like, who thought Naventic would be at the bottom of the standings? Are now Lagif, like leading into the year in January. So I mean, you look at these teams like Freedom and Roll20, who, and going into the season, everyone kind of considered, all right, that's going to be our Crucible teams, those, and now they're top in the standings. So I feel like HGC and the league has really helped with that. Has really helped with stability and developing talent. I think is a good way to describe it. Or like people that work hard, it's more rewarding for them. in the sense of like they do better, their teams do better. My least favorite part compared to last year, I mean, I do miss the LAN environment. Like I definitely feel like it is a lot different playing on LAN compared to online. So I really enjoyed that last year. I guess I feel like I knew all the other players better, where I feel like there's a decent amount of players like I've never met in person, I've never really talked to. So I mean, that kind of sucks. But I mean, from an overall standpoint, I really love what they've done with HGC. But that being said, I think there are a lot of things moving forward that I hope to see them improve on.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. To kind of tag on to that question a little bit, Gizmo, are you hoping to eventually see them, in a way, move the teams out to where you can play your weekly matches live?
I mean, I think that'd be really cool. I think that would be really cool. Yeah, kind of like the League of Legends format where they all, I think it's in California somewhere, they all live near it. I definitely think that's down the road. At least I hope it is. I just think it's something where it's probably like 2 years out. Yeah, so I mean, I just feel like HOTS right now is not ready from like an infrastructure standpoint. I feel like you need a lot of the other teams to be picked up by orgs. Because I feel like it's pretty important. Like you don't want to just have a player, move from their home and just kind of be dropped in California and say, all right, figure out your housing, show up to your matches on the weekends, like good luck. So I feel like orgs will help a lot with that. And I feel like, at least I hope that that's something that Blizzard's going to be focused on. And I feel like they are, right? Like even with the bid system coming out and sprays and things like that in game, like I feel like those things are, that's like huge steps in the right direction. Like getting orgs wanting to invest in HOTS.
Yeah, and definitely with, this is the first year of HGC and we've already seen a ton of improvements. So, imagine a couple years down the line, right now they just built in the process, actually I think it's completed, the Blizzard Arena, which could be a good place for that. Because like you mentioned, League of Legends, that's actually at the Riot headquarters there where they just have teams come in and have that miniature arena set up. So it is exciting to think about, that being a potential a couple years down the line. All right.
Yeah, I definitely think it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Multi?
Okay, so quick question. Broadly speaking, what does the North American scene need to do to come out on top of the other regions? And maybe by that I just mean Fnatic.
So how does NA beat Fnatic?
Exactly. Even in the long run.
That's the golden question, man.
You could just solve that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I would say just casual,
Yeah. Yes.
Well, and I mean, because I just think it's fast. Because there's really not like one answer, right? So I mean, I definitely think work ethic is something the NA as a whole has improved a lot on this year, where teams are working much harder and actually, trying more. But I definitely still feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, where like working effectively, right? Like there's like working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Just like kind of like in a nutshell, where and like just going over things and like actually like learning instead of just like going through the motions, I think is a huge one. I mean, and like broadly, I honestly feel like the biggest thing NA needs is time, and I don't know if that's like a cop-out excuse, but I feel like people always get like so angry, like NA lol, like NA clown fiesta, and I'm like, look at where we were in January compared to where we are now, and it's like I feel like we're in a such better spot. I mean, and like, things take time. Like teams don't just form. Like I've been on multiple, quote unquote super teams, right, where you throw 5 players together and they're supposed to be really good, and then we just flop, because like it's not possible. Like you need time to build that synergy, that cohesiveness, like learn how to communicate together. And I mean, it's like my biggest thing that I think is important is time. Like I feel like time and work ethic, and if NA continues to do that, I mean, because we have 3 to 4 like really good teams right now that are all right, like pulling each other up, if that makes sense, instead of like trying to, we're on top of the mountain and push everyone away, which I feel like NA kind of used to be, where instead of helping others, it was all about, okay, this is our knowledge, we're not going to share it with anyone, which I think is bad for regions. And I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons why EU has been so strong, is because you had these 3 dominant teams of Fnatic, Dignitas, and Liquid, all pulling each other up and like helping each other get better, and making their region really strong.
Oh, so it's more collaborative in NA now too. That's cool. That's good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, well, and like, there's obviously things where it's like, okay, we play Roll20 next week, we're not going to scrim each other next week.
Sure.
Like it used to be like you wouldn't scrim each other for months, and like you wouldn't talk to each other, and it was like this huge like conspiracy, like they're leaking scrims, and it was just like this big hassle. Whereas now it's, like everyone scrims each other, like, hey, can we run this comp again? Or can you run this comp versus us so we can try it? Things like that where it's like coming out of a scrim, right? So let's say they have a comp, we have a comp, and it's like, how do you know what really won you the game, right? Is it the composition? Is it this one hero? Is it just they were really tired this day? Is it that we were just playing like gods this day? Like, there are just so many factors that having another team that will, help you eliminate some of those is really nice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and that definitely
for sure.
goes on to explain, like, pre-HGC, us having the top teams for like one top team for like 6 months to where now it is kind of flip-flopping because you guys are all improving instead of one team just being, I don't want to say content with being the top of the region and not improving internationally, but you can definitely see it swaying the other way, which is really nice.
Yeah.
To kind of tag on to that a little bit, it's interesting that you kind of explain that, because it does answer a lot of questions. But what would you say to the people who are very worried about, I guess, the quote unquote inconsistency of NA, especially like we witnessed this past weekend where it was just upset after upset?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, because I feel like our team has been fairly inconsistent just ever since we formed. And I'm not sure. I mean, that's the magic question I ask myself is like, what's the root of that? Or like, what's the cause? And, like, I wish I had an answer, but like, I think it's a factor of things. And NA as a whole, I mean, because like, okay, so I have like a couple of thoughts about like NA as a whole being inconsistent. And not just Galefort. Because I feel like a decent amount of NA as a whole being inconsistent comes from, I do feel like other teams are getting better, if that makes sense. And then I'm trying to think. I'm not sure, because it's like, I feel like, and I've never played in EU, so I'm not sure like what their mindset is, but I definitely feel like people underestimate teams like pretty hard in NA, where it's like, oh, that team's not good, we don't have to try as hard. And it's like just a mental thing, right? Like, teams don't sit down and like have a discussion like on Monday, like, we have an easy team, so like, let's only practice half as hard. Like, we're still practicing the same hours, doing the same stuff. But I think it's on individual players, like, mentally, like, oh, we're playing, that's not Tempo Storm. Like, it should be an easy week, right? And that's why you see a decent amount of upsets.
Okay.
Like for last weekend at least, like I feel like Tempo's having a decent amount of internal problems.
I was gonna say they seem it's been really strange because they were so dominant in the first phase, and then ever since the clash, we've just seen them getting beat over and over again by teams they were beating handily before.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I feel like that exact example that you just said, I feel like a decent amount of that is just other teams are catching up to them, right? So their rate of improvement, I feel like it was lower than the other teams that they were beating before. Yeah. So like Roll20, Freedom, us, Gale Force, for example, I feel like the three of us were improving faster, but like we still weren't at that baseline where they were at, right? So they were still better than us, but like we were getting better day to day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, for that specific example, like that's what I kind of feel like was happening is I feel like our ceilings, those three teams, our ceilings were higher, and
they just kind of stalled out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing is like when you're on top for so long, I think like one of the hardest things is to like always stay hungry, just like people in general. Like it's like any sport you look at it, like there's a reason like one team doesn't win the national championship for football, basketball, or something every single year in a row, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe Golden State because they've been kind of insane the past couple of years, but like even that, it's just like very difficult. It's just very difficult for people to like constantly stay at that level of hunger, for like lack of a better word, just like mentality wise. Uh-huh. And I think that's just like psychological. Like I feel like so.
And that is going to be one of the things a lot of us are going to be looking at Fnatic too, as they go into BlizzCon after they've won these, two huge events. It's just like, okay, are they going to succumb to that? We've been on top for so long type thing and get lax, or are they going to find a way to keep that drive?
You want to hear my prediction? All right, because I love the Fnatic guys.
Do it.
I think they're all really good. So I think Fnatic wins BlizzCon, and then I think they do good in the first part, but I definitely feel like in EU you're gonna see Fnatic kind of wane, like maybe mid-season of next year, and I feel like it's so interesting because I feel like regions go in cycles where it's like you have 3 top teams, and then you have one team that comes above, or like 2 or 3 top teams, and then one team becomes the top team, and then like the other teams kind of shuffle, and then they like rebuild, and then the top team falls, and then you get like 3 strong teams again that like are all competing at each other and like pulling each other up. I mean, I don't know. I think it's so interesting.
It definitely, as a viewer, it keeps things really interesting.
Yeah,
for sure.
So
I love it.
It's crazy.
since that's your prediction, if you lose, does that mean we get a GFE boy band music video? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. The only problem with the boy band video is then we're just copying Fnatic. We got to do something our own.
Yeah, you got to do something original.
I got a dance video.
Whatever.
The Fnatic dab was pretty strong, gotta say, in the video.
It should be, my man.
All right, so my next question here is kind of on the state of drafting, and I've seen some discussion happening on Twitter over the past couple weeks about it, with currently between the ban phases, because currently, you got your bans, and then first pick team gets 3 picks, while the second team only gets 2 picks. So I've seen a lot of discussion of people wanting to move to each team having 3 picks, whether that's like a ABB, AAB, or flip-flopping that in some weird order. Are you okay with kind of the current unbalance of it? Do you think it gives even more advantage to the first pick team because they can kind of fill out their comp more? Or would you like to move towards the balance of, both teams having 3 picks before entering the next ban phase?
I mean, so I definitely feel like HOTS draft in general is more. I feel like the game a lot of times is decided in HOTS, right? And like obviously there's things that are going to happen, but like at a competitive level, you generally have like a rough idea of how the game's going to go when you're loading into draft. And like there are some games where it doesn't matter if you're Fnatic and you're playing versus the worst team in NAHGC. Like you just fundamentally can't win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, that's not true. Like, there's always, like that 1% chance, but it's like incredibly hard. Like, you have to climb Mount Everest to win, and they just have to, 5-man group in general is very draft dependent, which random tangent I feel like also adds to inconsistency because I do feel like so much of the game depends on how you're happening with the patches. Whereas I feel like League and Dota, that's not as much the case. Just because the matter of laning is so important, where like even if you get a better draft, if my mid laner dumpsters your mid laner, it doesn't matter because we just snowballed. And that's not in HOT. I feel like some fix is needed. I don't know what would work best. What you're saying with like the picks for both teams up front, the game even starts might help a lot. I think both of those could work. I don't think we'll see it happen until January, but I mean, I'd love to see it because it does feel like draft is too important right now.
Yeah, and of course, there'll always be the teams that are better at drafting and kind of getting in the mindset of what the other team's going to draft. So even, teams can still win the draft or, arguably win the game in the draft if you move to the 3-3. I think it just kind of spreads out, makes it a little bit more even. But just to kind of confirm what you're saying here, because you were breaking up a little bit, talking about, how it's not as important as far as like League because of the laning phase.
Yeah, so HOTS, I feel like as a game just fundamentally is more reliant on draft compared to the other MOBAs, League or Dota. And I think a big part of that comes from the fact that HOTS doesn't really have a laning phase, or the laning phase isn't that significant, right? You can just stand on your mount and just soak the minions and you'll basically do fine, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in League and Dota, there's last hitting, there's like you're getting your gold from your minions, so there's a lot more about the laning phase where, like, let's say we have a worse, we have a worse draft, but like our mid lane is 0-3 because their mid lane is just a god and he dumpsters him and he gets all the CS. Like it doesn't matter if the draft is going to be that much worse just because mechanically they outplayed us, like game knowledge wise, he just knew the matchup better. So like that's not really a thing in HOTS.
Yeah.
Was that better?
Yeah, that was good.
Sorry about it cutting out and stuff, by the way.
Oh, it's not a problem. You're driving through the desert.
Understand. It's car things.
Oh yes.
You're going to make NA great right now, so we appreciate you. And to the just kind of going along with that, are you hoping for like 3 bans coming up soon? Do you think that would help shake things up as well as some of the suggestions Gizmo had?
I think 3 bans. Yeah, I think that would help. I think 2 bans before the first phase. Because for a long time, the thing I was really worried about with 3 bans was that what happens when 6 supports are banned? Like, you know. But I feel like we're at the point where I think there's enough warriors, there's enough supports that, like you can still, you're not going to be forced to solo heal Tehran. Like I think there is an option where you can get a support. So I think 3 bans would be awesome.
Okay.
All right, Kevin, what do you got?
Okay, so my next question is, when a hero receives a major rework, like the ones we just saw with the KT patch, does this get you guys excited to test out the new heroes, like the ones in team comps, and like test out strategies with them in scrims? Or do you tend to like stick to team comps that are tried and true while you just wait for the dust to settle on the new changes?
I mean, that's a hard one, right? I mean, because it really depends on patch to patch. I mean, because generally reading through PTR notes, I generally have a feel for if it's going to be a good change or a bad change. It obviously depends on numbers. I mean, 'cause that's what the game like fundamentally comes down to. But I mean, like we'll use the Leoric change, for example. Like leading into, I haven't played it that much just because we're normally a patch behind. So like I don't really practice that much on live. But like that's a change that I was really looking forward to because it looks like it's going to make Leoric do a lot more damage and his March ult is going to be really strong. So, I mean, there definitely is a little bit of that where theory crafting, right? Where it's like, wow, this got changed. Like, I'm so excited. Like, literally, Akaface and I were talking about, just like how cool the medics level 20 could be, right? We just thought it was a cool, like, we just thought it was cool. And we were even theory crafting, like, so basically what it is level 20 is it like spawns another medic at like the altar, like the medevac at the altar. And then let's say your team's sitting in the fountain, they can click on the thing. And then both the medevacs will like meet at one place. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And like I thought it'd be so cool if like what if that was just a global, like you could choose where it went. I thought that would be such a cool level 20 talent where you have your Leo top lane and they have a Dahaka and you're like, well, we don't have a global, but now that we're 20, we just throw a medevac up there, pull the Leoric down, and it's like I thought that could be a kind of cool mechanic. So I mean, definitely a lot of theory crafting comes out with new patches. But it's also like a lot of work of trying to, because I have 4 days to figure out what I think is the best before we play Lagif. So it's a lot of stress as well.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. That would do it.
Yeah. No, that's really good. So what do you think then on what are your thoughts in our current meta as it stands right now? And what about Kel'Thuzad? I think that's something people would be really interested to get your opinion on as well.
The current meta, I mean, I actually kind of like the current meta. I feel like the current meta is pretty diverse. It's a lot better than the double support, like every game meta that we had before.
Yes, thank goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness we move on. But I feel like it's like, I don't know, I like it. I feel like it's pretty fun. I feel like it's fairly macro heavy from a competitive standpoint, which is, I always enjoy that as a shot caller, like a lot of pushing, a lot of, mid-div for faster rotates, things like that. Kel'Thuzad, I feel like that hero's insane, like super good. I haven't actually played him yet, just because, like I said, we haven't been practicing on the live patch. But from playing against him in Hero League and in SEL, which is like an in-house league for pros, he definitely, Yoda from Superstars destroyed me a couple games in SEL where like I just get chained to a pillar and get one shot and I'm like, what is happening? So he definitely looks really good. I like that they're making high skill cap heroes that you can really be a game changer on. So I'm pretty excited for him. He looks really strong. His ultimate, that is like a 15-second cooldown in his global, is just insane to me. Like I just imagine hunting people and then they just follow up with that and it's like the person just gets one shot. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. Do you think Blizzard's kind of introducing these higher skill cap heroes to maybe fix a little bit of what you were talking about with the whole, like League CS thing where one person can really outdo another person? Do you think this kind of hero is their answer to that?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they're trying to make heroes that if you're a good player, you'll shine on it, and it'll show that you're a good player. And if you're a bad player, you're not going to be able to play it that well. And I love that they're doing that. I love that you basically make it easier to differentiate, like who's good or not. I mean, because like kills and deaths and assists don't really matter as much in HOTS compared to other games, I don't think. I mean, because like I can carry the game and I can be split pushing a cigar the entire time. So it's like, and that's just like the nature. I mean, that's one of the things I love about HOTS, right? Like it's, and I don't, I play HOTS because I like HOTS. I don't want to play League, right? And it's one of the things that I love, is like the team experience mechanic. But I definitely feel like making heroes that have the ability to carry, like Feast or Famine, I just think that's really important because it really helps differentiate who's good or not, which I think is important. Like you want to watch a pro and be like, wow, that guy's a god, right? Like that. Yeah, that's why everyone is like infatuated with Faker, is because he's so good, right? Uh-huh. And that's such like a cool thing, I think, for any esport, right? And I feel like they're definitely trying to do that, which makes me excited as a pro player because having these heroes makes it, easier, or just gives us the capability to make those, highlight montage plays, that I'll email to my mom and be like, look, Mom, I'm cool. And she'll be like, what, Michael, I don't really care that much, but yes, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's perfect because I feel like, not even within the pro scene, but as far as Hero League and stuff, these type of characters make it easier. I don't think necessarily there'll be carries. Like you can't carry a team in Hero League, but like on these heroes where you complete quests faster and kind of get that edge, it enables you to at least help more in carrying your teams in Hero League, which is just nice for, the game in general. Let's see. Okay, so Aka actually happens to be in the car. Are you guys, and you kind of answered this, I think, in your last question, but are you guys happy with the direction the supports seem to be headed in now?
I mean, it depends on the player you talk to. I don't. Aka Face is not happy with the direction of supports. He said Brightwing needs at least 6 more buffs. But I mean, I just want to carry, man. Aka just wants to be able to carry. I don't know. I really am not sure. Like, I go back and forth on their thought with, like taking away cleanse from a lot of the heroes. Mm-hmm. I definitely feel like no hero should have cleanse, or every hero should baseline have cleanse, right? Where it's just a level 1 talent that everyone has. And just the reason for that is because it's just too powerful. So I'm not sure how I feel. Like in this current meta, I feel like supports are actually in a pretty good place, where I feel like pretty much every support is fairly balanced, right? There's not one support that's like miles ahead, like last patch where Uther was just the God King, and then Oriole was the God King, right? And it's like I feel like Rhaegar, Monk, Brightwing, Lucio, they're all pretty close. Like all the supports are relatively close and kind of have their own niche, which I like. But definitely some of the support players wish they could carry more. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, fair enough. Multi.
Okay, so next question. When friends and family who don't understand what esports are ask you what to do for a living, what do you tell them?
I mean, I tell them I play video games professionally, and then I always get a laugh as like a response. Like, I was pretty lucky in the sense that like I played in a dorm, and that really broke that barrier for like a lot of friends and family.
True. Yeah.
Where, because telling someone, I won college tuition, like people see the value in that. They're like, wow, like, whoa, that's super cool. And it's easier for me to like leeway into like, and I also do it now as a living. I mean, like a lot of questions I get is like, does it pay well? And it's like, it pays like a standard job.
But that's really interesting. We're getting into an interesting time here because, for instance, at my previous job, when my boss and stuff would ask what I do take interest in, and I'd talk about, I do podcasting over video games and esports, and he kind of gives me a weird look about it. But, people haven't understood, but they're starting to understand. We're getting into an era of, we have sports teams owners like Robert Kraft and Rick Fox and stuff investing in the esports and filling arenas to in Overwatch League, kind of putting its foot here where they're going to have the salary and health benefits, which hopefully heroes can get to at some point, that it's going to get, much easier and kind of less taboo as time goes on. But so it's exciting to kind of see where this goes in the next, 5-10 years.
Yeah, I mean that's always fascinating to me. Is I think it'll just be really cool to watch esports grow, and just see where it goes. I don't know. It's like this is like a random tangent. I just I'm curious if in like 20 years, like I'll be like an esports coach or something like an NFL team, because I feel like I don't know. I just like that'd be so interesting, and like maybe my time as a player now, I'm just like some washed up scrub, but then people know me. I have a random thought that like I always is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that would be, I think honestly that's one of the things that it's going to direction hopefully that it's going to have to go, because with esports and stuff, reaction time, like it just seems to fit younger people. Once you start getting old like me, or losing reaction time and just can't keep up to par with the youngins. But
Rip.
Yeah, I know. That's my excuse. That's my excuse why I can't get the mount. All right. Multi, you got the last question here to wrap it up.
Yep. So before you get to go, we got to ask one more real quick. So who is the next hero that you'd like to see added to the Nexus, and why? Like, who do you want the most?
I want Deathwing. I just want. Okay, I don't know if it's Deathwing, but like I want a dragon aspect that's a dragon. You know what I'm saying? Because like they give us Chromie, but I want an actual dragon. Yes. So I'm going with dragon. Like Deathwing, and I want him to be a dragon. And just because dragons are cool, I guess, is the why.
Yep. No, I'm right there with you. I've been campaigning for. It doesn't have to be Deathwing. It could be Ysera. It could be Alexstrasza. It could be Malygos.
A dragon.
Yeah, a dragon that is a dragon the whole time and not a gnome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for taking some time out on your road trip over to your boot camp and chatting with us. It's been awesome. A lot of really good insights. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast. Deathwing coming soon, right?
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Right.
Hey, they listened to the show, apparently. We got Dreadlord Jaina in the game finally. So, but, best wishes to you guys on up and coming, leading into BlizzCon, and we look forward to seeing you guys at BlizzCon again.
All right. Yeah. Look forward to seeing you too.
All right. Take care, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a great boot camp.
All right. See you guys.
All right. So
it was a good interview.
It was fantastic. And Mike's he's a really good guy to talk to. And I loved how, he was willing to talk about, go in depth to the state of NA and, talking about EU and just how open he was about other teams, which was really nice. Let us know how you guys liked that interview. I know we've gotten some good feedback in chat here. With the current way, HGC scheduling and things like that, it's just really hard to get people on the live show now in that aspect of the community. So if you guys enjoy these, we're definitely working on trying to get more of these. But it was a good time, fun time.
Yeah, it's definitely a format we're looking to explore. So let us know if you liked it, for sure.
All right, and TBK, you got a little bit more to update?
Yeah, we do have a little bit more. Let's see here. So, interestingly enough, introducing Play Like a Pro, starring Mike. Blizzard is going to be doing a new deal, a new thing called Play Like a Pro, and the press release reads, looking to improve your game? Why not learn from the best? Each month, the Play Like a Pro program will feature current Heroes of the Storm Global Championship League players on the front page of Twitch. This is pretty cool. Playing Heroes of the Storm with viewers. These educational streams will feature breakdowns on how to play Heroes characters that are key to the current meta. Participating pro players will also be playing at least 3 games with new viewers. And so Mike is going to be doing that very first, which it just happened like this. Super appropriate. Yeah. And he's going to be doing that first. Looks like
tomorrow.
The stream is scheduled for September 14th, starting at 10 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep. So if you wake up early and you listen to this podcast, make sure you're able to catch.
You'll be able to, if you're one of our Thursday listeners, you'll still be able to make it.
Yeah.
But it's cool. So they're going to be doing these things monthly, which is really awesome. And it's going to be on the front page of Twitch, which is even cooler. So
that's just good exposure for the game. And I mean, I'm just interested to see how these go down. I mean, I'm sure I could learn a lot from it. So,
I'll check it out
at least in VOD form, if nothing else.
Sure. And then finally, as alluded to in the interview, we had a very interesting weekend in the old HGC. Space Station Gaming took Gale Force Esports 3-0. Freedom took Superstars 3-0. Tempo Storm barely beat Leg Force 3-2. Even in Death took a game off of Roll20. And then Team Freedom beat Gale Force 3-1. And then Superstars came and beat Tempo Storm 3-1.
Yep.
It was a very confusing weekend. And that's why we talked about it a little bit, because this was basically upset city this weekend. It was absolutely crazy. So honestly, I have no idea where it's going to go from here. Like, NA right now is, like, from the playoff standpoint, it's almost anybody's game. There's multiple teams that could be, even in Death is most likely going to be in the Crucible, but there's potential that Leg Force might not be.
Right.
Still. So really, really interesting how everything's kind of coming together. So we'll see how that develops. But HGC, of course, continues this weekend.
That it does. So we'll keep an eye on that. But it is time to go ahead and hop into our Hero of the Week.
Hero of the Week.
All right, it is KT week. We've done KT before, but not this KT. This is the real KT week. The other one was fake.
Right.
For the real
Fail.
KT, please stand up.
Yep.
And then float.
Float slowly.
Is he even standing on anything, or is he just the dress under there? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I've never looked.
I have not either.
I'd be a little scared. Seems intimidating.
But if you guys have not gotten a chance to play KT, I definitely suggest doing so. He is higher skill floor, skill ceiling, but he is a blast to play. The main build we're going to be going over here is going to be Chains build, which is a little bit higher skill cap. I know typically we try and form these around builds that are good for people to pick up if they're just picking up the hero. But with KT being such, high skill floor,
Let's be honest, they all are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Every build in this is going to be more difficult because the just nature of the beast here. But we think this is going to be kind of the most viable and something to work towards. However, we will outline a Q build, which is kind of a more entry level build and less dependent on hitting those hard skill shots as we go along. So real quick here, we'll just knock out some of the traits and abilities, which we've gone over before, but his trait is Master of the Cold Dark. This is a quest where you'll gain 1 blight every time a hero is rooted by Frost Nova or hit by the Chains of Kel'Thuzad. After 15 blight, cooldown of all basic abilities is reduced by 2 seconds. After 30 blight, gains 75% spell power. So this is where the skill floor comes from, getting this quest done as quickly as possible. His abilities, Death and Decay, 20 mana, 6-second cooldown. After half a second, launch an orb that explodes upon hitting an enemy, dealing 150 damage to enemies in the area. The explosion leaves behind a pool of decay that lasts 2 seconds, dealing 70 damage every half second to enemies. W is Frost Nova, 45 mana, 10-second cooldown. Create a Nova that explodes after 1 second, dealing 212 damage to enemies inside, slowing them by 35% for 2.5 seconds. Enemies in the center are rooted for 1 second. And his E, Chains of Kel'Thuzad, 45 mana, 12-second cooldown. Launch a chain, dealing 97 damage to the first enemy, hero, or structure hit. For 4 seconds after hitting the enemy, chains can be reactivated to launch to an additional enemy, pulling both enemies together and stunning them for half a second. And then his first heroic here, TBK?
It is Frost Blast. It is 70 mana on a 100-second cooldown. It's kind of the reverse of Pyroblast. You launch a large meteor of ice. Upon impact, it deals 100 damage to its target, but more damage, 275, to the enemies in the area. And all enemies hit by it are rooted for 1.5 seconds.
And multi, heroic number 2.
Heroic number 2 is Shadow Fisher, which at 50 mana and a 15-second cooldown. Yeah, you heard teen at the end there. not 50, 15. Create a fissure anywhere on the battleground that explodes after 1.5 seconds, dealing 440 plus 2.5% scaling damage to enemy heroes in its area. The keynote here is that it's only affecting heroes, so you're not wave clearing with this thing or split soaking or anything super weird like that. But I will get into these later, but super fun.
Yep. And then before we hop into the build here, again, just for completing this quest, it's going to be his E and W. Just the roots for the W are going to count towards the blight, which is important to know. And I think as we've discussed, and we've heard some feedback from the community as well on how they're completing this quest, it's really just early game, casting these as often as possible, not worrying about combos as much. If you can get them, if the opportunity is there, great. But don't sit around holding your cooldowns waiting for one of those opportunities. If you got somebody,
because he does not have mana issues really at this point.
Yeah.
I was about to say, and don't worry about mana either, because not a problem.
That could change.
Yeah,
that could change.
It could.
And if you are casting these off cooldown to try and complete the quest, you may have to go back a couple times. But again, that's fine. Once you get the quest completed and you're looking for the combos, then you won't have any mana issues.
I feel even then you can get good use out of. Like, he has so few mana problems that if you're laning and just trying to farm out the quest, you can still get good use out of the fountain. I mean, by the time I'm nearing the end of my mana pool again, it's up again for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So. One more note on this too. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, guys, but I did test it today. So Chains of Kel'Thuzad, if you get one quest for landing it, but then if you then chain onto another enemy, you get it again.
Yes. Which is
something to think about.
Yeah. Why I say if you obviously you want to be laning against multiple opponents if possible. You don't want to be a solo laner.
Sure.
But if the opportunity is there to chain two people, take it. If not, if there's only one, still try and get that sucker off just to get that stack. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the build here. TBK, what are we going to be going with for level 1?
So level 1 with our chains build, we're of course going to go barbed chains. And level 1 in general is kind of the setup talent for how you, in a lot of ways, want to build as you go on, because a lot of these talents have secondary effects when your Master of the Cold Dark trait is completed. So barbed chains increases the Chains of Kel'Thuzad's damage by 125%, but after you get your 30 blight stacks, chains reduces the armor of pulled heroes by 15 for 4 seconds.
Oh, that's not a but. That is an and. You get all that stuff if you finish up the blight quest. So I like it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and the 125% damage is kind of noticeable. I mean, it's not your main damage.
It definitely is,
means, but it's definitely noticeable. So
yeah. And then if you want to go a little bit on the simpler side, you can go Plague Lands. This increases Death and Decay's duration by a second, so you get 2 more ticks from it. And then after you gain 30 blight, it also increases the radius of Death and Decay's pool by 30%, which is actually very significant radius increase. It's a pretty big pool. So that's the slightly easier build, because you just got to throw your big ball of dark energy and hit something.
Yes,
right.
It doesn't matter what it is. You just got to hit something to pop it. So
to me, that's also the wave clear build in a way. Like if I'm on a map where I just need to push lanes somehow, he has pretty good siege. I mean, just with the Q alone, almost you can get some extra mileage out of the Frost Nova as well.
It's pretty low cooldown too.
Mm-hmm.
It's all pretty low cooldown, and again, no mana problems. So whatever.
Yep. All right. For level 4 here, this is kind of situational. So we have Strip Shields, which pulling a hero with Chains of Kel'Thuzad grants Kel'Thuzad a permanent 112 shield, stacking up to 2 times. Additionally, Chains of Kel'Thuzad deals up to 270 damage to bonus shields. Phylactery is a quest where you collect 10 regeneration globes to charge Kel'Thuzad's Phylactery. After it's charged, the Phylactery can be activated while dead to immediately respawn at the Hall of Storms, but must be charged again. The passive of this is Kel'Thuzad heals for 10% of all spell damage dealt while the Phylactery is charged. And then the other one, Armor of Arch
Isn't that
Lich.
a funny word?
Phylactery?
Phylactery.
It really is.
The way it reads, it does not feel like it should be pronounced that way, but I believe that's correct.
Phylactery. Sorry, I just had to. I was just staring at it while you were reading it, and I was just like,
Phylactery.
Phylactery.
Armor of the Archlich. Activate to gain 50 physical armor for 4 seconds. Upon activation, nearby enemies take 45 damage and are slowed by 35% for 4 seconds. In most situations here, I would say Phylactery is going to be the go-to. Not only just having the opportunity to spawn if you're, in a situation where your team's going to need you again if you died early or died during a rotation, but the healing from your spell damage is also fairly nice. Strip Shield's obviously going to be good against some shield dependent teams if you're going against those, whether that is Zarya or Tassadar. And Armor of the Archlich if you're really getting owned by somebody and chased down.
It's your anti-dive, basically.
Right. It's good for that.
Yeah. Normally, you wouldn't necessarily want to draft him into a heavy dive team because you are squishy. Like, KT is noticeably squishy, and you have no escapes. But for quick match especially, this can be really good when you're just thrown in against teams that you have no control over.
Yeah.
As far as drafting goes, and it can get you out of a lot of tight spots.
Mm-hmm. But 9 times out of 10, I'd say probably Phylactery is the way to go. Multi-level 7.
So perhaps 10 times out of 10, Glacial Spike. So this thing just kind of outshines the other talents in this tier, in my opinion. I think I've spoken with TBK at least, who I think agrees with that. But yeah, so Glacial Spike, you activate to create a spike that detonates after 4 seconds, dealing 220 plus scaling level damage to nearby enemies, and the spike can be affected by chains of Kel'Thuzad. So basically, it's another ability. You can keybind to whatever. And so you just choose a spot on the map, put a spike down. It has a tiny delay getting it up there. But otherwise, again, it's just as it reads. It's a target for you to chain enemies to. It has collision, so you could block off some narrow escapes and that sort of thing, or just make it kind of awkward that someone else has to run around it to get around what you're doing. And then even if they do get around it, land those chains and drag them back to it. So in my mind, it can be used as not only a finisher, but an escape. You think about it in the laning phase, you get ganked by that Dahaka, throw a spike behind you, walk a couple steps, throw the chains on him. Yeah, okay, maybe he gets a drag off, but by the time that's done, you drag him because that's what you could do. You can drag Dahakas to the spike and then just get just enough gap to where you're out of his spinny, whirly stuff. I forget the ability name. Chat, help me out. Dahaka spinny, whirly stuff. Dark Swarm?
Yes.
Nailed it. We didn't even need chat. Thank you, TBK. So yeah, you get the idea. Like, you can save yourself. You can be a playmaker with this thing. And it's kind of an afterthought that it does damage, in my opinion, because it doesn't have a huge radius around it in which this really goes off. 220 is also not like a groundbreaking amount, but when you think about it, it's a decent number. And so if you timed it super right, you could like drag someone to it at the moment it detonates and all that. But I don't know, if I'm playing with Glacial Spike, at least at my skill level so far, I'm not so focused on stuff like that as much as I am like setting up positioning, making it awkward for them to have to walk around it, and then of course just dragging people to it. It's a fixed position that you're aiming for. It's kind of like T-ball.
Yeah. And so this is really interesting, and I wanted to address this because we did talk about it a little bit. And there's a big Reddit thread comparing Glacial Spike to Esso Johan, which for those of you who weren't around at the time, Esso Johan was a talent on Li Ming that was basically 100% pick rate because it caused the orb when it exploded to pull in like a mini graviton surge, basically, only on an orb cooldown, which was absolutely ridiculous. So Glacial Spike is not quite that. It's not that ridiculous. However, I do think it outshines the other two level 7 talents by a lot. And the biggest thing is because it can give you guaranteed combos. And this is absolutely huge because you throw down your Glacial Spike and now you can put it anywhere near you. You throw your chains on it. Now, like Multi said, you have a stationary point at which to shoot your chains off of, which makes them easier to land than if they're on a moving hero trying to hit another moving hero. Once you get that chain you know exactly where that hero is going to land. So you throw down your Frost Nova, you chain them back, and you can throw your Death and Decay. So at that point, they're pulled back, stunned for a short time. Once they're stunned, Frost Nova procs. They're in the middle. They get frozen. Glacial Spike goes off as your Death and Decay is coming in to hit them. And then once you hit 10, you have a Shadow Fisher you can throw on a little earlier instead of necessarily that Death and Decay as well, which is going to do a heck of a lot more damage than Death and Decay. And once you have your quest finished, it literally enables you, if you combo it correctly, to one-shot almost anybody. And it's absolutely insane how it works. And we'll talk about the ultimates in a second, but this is that is why Ice or Glacial Spike is just so powerful. Mm-hmm. It's a 30-second cooldown. So it's not, like I said, it's not S of Johan broken or anything, but it is an incredible enabling tool for KT to set himself up for his entire combo that can absolutely wreck a single person.
Yeah. Because it scales with your completing the quest 75% spell damage too, right?
It should.
Mm-hmm. That has to be part of the burst.
So you're so you're getting AoE damage from that. You're getting the extra damage from the middle of Frost Nova. You're getting the damage from chains and the stun, and then the massive damage of Shadow Fisher.
Yeah. And even the heroes that's not going to one-shot if you land it perfectly, or even if you don't land your combo perfectly, if your team's focusing, it's almost just like free kill on whatever hero you're choosing. I will say with Glacial Spike here, this is one of the high skill cap things, using this properly. When you're first trying it out, again, don't necessarily worry about the Glacial Spike explosion damage. I found it's easier learning it.
It's more a setup.
Yeah, to actually once you get your chains on a hero, then throw that thing down that you can chain them back to. Because at this point, when Glacial Spike goes up, people kind of know what's going on unless you hide it in a bush. But if you are going Q build, you're having trouble with the skill shots, anything like that, even though Glacial Spike is 10 times out of 10, you want to work towards getting to pick that. I will say, if Glacial Spike wasn't as good as it is, Accelerated Decay would be pretty darn good. And that's going to be each time, this is, again, if you're going Q build and having trouble with those skill shots, each time a hero's hit by Death and Decay's pool, they take 20% more periodic damage from Death and Decay for the next 4 seconds, stacking it to 6 times. Right. So if you have another, stun heavy team or whatever that can lock people down, that's another way for you to get a lot of damage. But again, it's not working towards your quest. It's not going to be the most ideal situation for you as a KT player. TBK level 10?
So level 10, right now, you're going to want to pick Shadow Fisher almost 100% of the time. And this is not necessarily because Shadow Fisher is better than Frostblast, because Frostblast is really cool. But this is one of those times, and I don't like to see this level of disparity. This is one of those times that the cooldown on Shadow Fisher is so much lower than Frostblast that it's just, even if Frostblast was really good, it's almost not worth taking just because its cooldown is so different than Shadow Fisher is. Because you're going to get off 6, what is it? Math. Like almost like 7. Almost 7 Shadow Fishers.
6 in 2/3.
Yeah. Almost 7 Shadow Fishers in the time you get 1 Frostblast.
If you're using it on cooldown, which you probably aren't necessarily, but
but you're not using Frostblast on cooldown either.
You'll get almost 5. You'll get 5 in whatever.
15 seconds.
It doesn't matter.
So when a cooldown is this short,
math. Math. Podcaster math.
Oh, never mind. 100 seconds. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when a cooldown is this short, like I honestly just think of this as another basic ability. It kind of reminds me of Thornwood Vine as Lunara and some of these others, where it's just, it's 3 seconds longer cooldown than your chains in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It's Stitch's hook almost Stitch's hook equivalent.
Or some of it seems like Uther's healing and abilities and stuff too, So
yeah,
it functions like an ability too, in the sense that it's part of that combo you were just citing, and then it is something you can just use to harass outside in other lanes. And obviously, there's no better feeling than getting that pick-off kill when they just barely go over the wall with no health, and you're like, nailed it, blind fire into the dark. So cool.
It does have a very long, for an ability standpoint, it has a very long setup time, 1.5 seconds. And it's not the biggest radius in the world, so you have to be careful or use that in conjunction with CC, which you have in spades. So it's usually fairly easy to kind of combo those. But yeah, I just can't recommend Frost Blast while Shadow Fisher is where it is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like the cooldown, it's just too low. The cooldown is just too low to ignore.
Well, and
it's global.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You would think Frost Blast would be great for like capture objectives, where somebody's channeling something, people's teams are going to be bunched up to get those roots. But Shadow Fisher is just as good because it is global. It's used, if you're late to a rotation on a capture objective or something, it's an interrupt that you can use. Right. It's a, interrupt the tower or curse, anything like that. So it's so good. So good.
Yep.
It is. And so Frost Blast, though, that's the tricky thing about this, is that as an ability, it's actually pretty dang good too. Like, if it wasn't for that cooldown thing, I would seriously consider it some. And this is coming from a guy who never considers Pyroblast on Kel'Thuzad, because I don't know. I just have always thought that the Phoenix was better there. But here, you kind of sentence someone to being rooted for sure, and then there's all the other people around them that are either scattering, and so if they don't, obviously, then you've really maybe taken over the whole group fight. But otherwise, you've really at least zoned a little bit, as well as rooted at least somebody, and it just kind of helps him set up the rest of his combos and stuff. So it is a cool ability, but I'm with you guys totally in saying that just that cooldown on Shadow Fisher makes it a no-brainer.
It probably needs to be 20 or 25 seconds. Yeah, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed. Level 13 here. We're going to be going Chains of Ice. After Chains of Kel'Thuzad's stun expires, the enemy is also slowed by 70% for 1.25 seconds. I will admit, before my first couple days, I was stuck running Chain Link, which pull two heroes together with Chains of Kel'Thuzad reduces its cooldown by 4 seconds. Sounds awesome. Is awesome. But Chains of Ice is going to make it so much easier for you to land your Frost Nova route. Because if you are just even a little bit off in your timing, they'll have time to get out of the route. They'll still get hit by the slow portion, perhaps. But the 70% slow is huge. And not only that, even if you're not hitting Frost Nova, it's huge for follow-up from your team.
They also spend more time just sitting in your Death and Decay.
Yeah. I will say, if you are at this point in the game, you should have your quests done absolutely, 110%. If for some reason you don't, perhaps Chain Link may be the way to go to help you catch up. But, Chains of Ice is absolutely preferable.
But you can still link two heroes and get value out of Chains of Ice. You've stunned them both, and they're both slowed, so...
Yes, but if you're really far behind, just having the 4 second cooldown reduced, helping you cast more to catch up in your quest.
I can see that.
Level 16 multi.
16. So we're going with here Hungering Cold, and Hungering Cold is so where enemies rooted by Frost Nova take an additional 60 plus scaling per level damage each time they're damaged by Kel'Thuzad during the next 4 seconds. So it kind of changes up your hit cycle a little bit. Perhaps instead of setting up the chain and doing some other things first. When I took this, I would try to get the root off first, if I could, and then just follow up with whatever I could there. Because, you get 4 seconds worth of buff. And so this, now, okay, I haven't run the math on this. Maybe you guys know a bit better. Is this calculating, like, everything, including auto attacks?
Yeah, anytime you damage.
So I could land an auto attack, get even the glacial spike damage off at the same time I'm doing all my abilities, and I'm still getting a free 60 per. 60 plus scaling per. Yes. No wonder this guy one-shots people.
Yep. He can be, especially once you get the quest done, he can be absolutely insane damage-wise. If played marginally well.
The only other thing I would say, again, if you're not landing your roots for some reason, Power of Ice Crown, even if you're just, stunning, rooting, or slowing, a hero grants 6% spell power for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Another option for you.
True.
Mm-hmm. But and then TBK, level 20.
So I was thinking about this as I was putting the build together, and I put situational at first because there's a lot of really cool level 20 talents, and then I scratched it off because there's only one.
Yeah.
Really, and it's because again of Shadow Fisher, and it's extremely low cooldown. So what you're gonna want to do at 20 is take Might of the Scourge, which is the Shadow Fisher upgrade, and this is bonkers. This is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Not killing, but hitting a hero with Shadow Fisher instantly resets its cooldown.
Yep.
So it's just always up unless you
mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. If you pair KT with any other type of CC or slows, it is not super hard to hit this. And this means just Shadow Fishers in succession. And if this were not the case, if it was like kill a hero and it resets it, okay, that's cool. You're going to get some hero kills with that probably. And that's kind of a nice thing. But even then, it's not amazing because you're only resetting a 15-second cooldown. So,
right.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo.
That honestly feels like it's more in line with just other 20 talents we've seen for heroics. That idea. But this is, keep going. I don't mean to catch up.
I mean, it's a really interesting thing because like shifting malice is really cool because it gives you basically it gives you a Genji pretty much, which is super funny.
Really short.
But because you activate to dash forward and you deal 150 plus scaling damage to enemies in the path, and if you kill somebody with it, it resets the cooldown of Shifting Malice, which is really cool. But Shifting Malice is on like a 240 second or something cooldown. So it's just one of those, you can use it to escape once. Because this is level 20, you're probably not going to get to use it more than once or twice at a 240 second cooldown at level 20. So this is most definitely a finisher, which is kind of an interesting thing for him. And then he's got another really cool one called the Damned Return, which you activate to create a shade of Naxxramas that lasts 15 seconds and mimics Kel'Thuzad's Cast of Death and Decay.
And I actually love that one.
Really cool.
It's cool and it's fun to get off, and it is, I mean, like these other ones, a pretty good power spike too. I mean, late game, if you are landing those just fine, you are doing some damage because again, you've got the 75% spell damage on everything.
Huge siege damage.
Huge siege. I mean, if you're just looking to, like, if you're hitting 20 and you're pulling up to the core, take that. If you think you're going to make a push, just get more damage in on that core because you can.
Yeah, it's the thing, and I haven't actually tried landing this. I don't know if like the timing works out correct, but with Might of the Scourge, I imagine if you time it correctly, you could actually throw down your Shadow Fissure, then chain 2 enemies into that on top of a Nova, and then get another Shadow Fissure down.
Oh yeah,
presumably,
which is death
close to it
for both those heroes if they're hit by both those Shadow Fissures. So, and I was honestly kind of underwhelmed by Shifting Malice again, just because of I thought the range was going to be a little bit longer on it, and it doesn't do as much damage as I was expecting. So it is kind of actually pretty difficult to finish somebody off with that.
And the whole thing about Shadow Fissure is that Shadow Fissure by itself is very powerful, especially once you upgrade to Might of the Scourge, because KT has a lot of personal CC and slows to help get people in those Shadow Fissures.
Right.
But if you actually comp a team that has slows or roots or stuns, that's just going to be multiplied. Like you run Uther, you get your Judgment, your Divine Storm, you run a Malfurion, or you got the guaranteed root, you run a Zul, you got a guaranteed root. There's a lot of heroes that can do it. You run a Chromie with Temporal Loop, where you know exactly where that dude's gonna end up and the exact timing of when that Shadowfish is. There's a ton of heroes that you could just dump onto KT for the added slows, the added roots, the added stuns, And that's just going to multiply the value of Shadow Fisher and Might of the Scourge by that much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But that is going to do it as far as the build. Again, for last minute tips and stuff, mine is just, it's all about the quest. You got to get that thing completed as quick as possible. The later the game goes on, the more disadvantage you're at just with the way his scaling works at only 2.5% instead of 4%. So it can be kind of rough. And, avoid the dive comps. Zeratul is a nemesis. John will tell you that.
Yes.
But, I mean, I don't know. As far as, do you guys have any other tips besides out of the line of the quest?
I do, for sure.
Okay, Multi?
Okay, so when it comes to Death and Decay and just wave clear in general, again, I kind of hinted at this, but he actually really has some pretty solid wave clear. And he's a decent solo laner in some cases, too. Maybe not Zagara level necessarily, but you get the idea. So the trick is on this, though, is that you kind of have to treat it as like you're working with Li Ming's Arcane Orbs is how I think of it. Because, again, so you launch out your orb for Death and Decay, and it explodes upon hitting an enemy. So it can be the front of that entire minion wave, just blow up there and only do damage to the front minion. So there's a couple tricks you can do with this that I've found out, at least in my own practice. One I really like is setting it up to where, when the minion wave is walking out into the lane, they're kind of lined up and then they fan out when they start fighting each other. If you can kind of tag it from the side as they're approaching in a line, then they actually just walk through the Death and Decay, and you get so much more value out of it there. And so you kind of have to think about landing those in the same way in group fights and everywhere else. Trying to put it somewhere awkward, maybe like touch someone on their back shoulder with it, if you will, so that if they turn around and flee, they have to kind of walk through a couple ticks of it. So there's a ton of nuance and stuff you can do with just Death and Decay alone. And that's not even considering the other abilities, landing the combo, whatever else. And so all this said, my last tip just for you guys on this is just simply that if all this seems like too much to you, like what I just said when TBK was going through like how the combo works with all the abilities and all that, don't be dissuaded even then, because I think you even said it earlier, TBK too, that even if you play him moderately well, I think you're still doing a fine job. Like if you're using the Frost Nova to get a good root off, and you chain a couple people together in a group fight, and you're not dying a lot because you're not overextending, and you're getting good like siege damage in with Death and Decay, which by the way can also reach outside of the range of towers, much like Li Ming yet again. Then in my mind, like you end the game with a win, and you got good numbers. It's a win. Like you didn't have to land one combo the entire game, and you're still doing all right in my book. So. Just if you're worried about the skill floor, as we've hinted at, yes, it's a little bit higher, but I think you could do it. You got this one. Just jump in there.
And you just reminded me of something. And I will say, I would be careful about using the term solo laner, at least until you finish the quest.
Oh, fair point.
But once you complete
that quest,
he
could push back on the wave enough to justify. But yeah.
Well, and once you complete your quest, he becomes excellent at Merc camping as well once he gets that damage boost. So with Death and Decay and Frost Nova.
Yeah, he does.
TBK, what do you have?
Just to kind of go with Multi's line of thought, just take him into try mode and practice combos for a few minutes. Turn cooldowns on, the insta cooldowns on, and find one of the target dummies. Just take 5 or 10 minutes, practice your combos.
Mm-hmm.
It'll help a lot. Makes it really easy to get the timing down in a much more friendly, protected environment. Yeah. Also remember that you can also chain to enemy structures.
Right.
So you can use enemy structures like Glacial Spike to initially do the initial chain and then grab somebody. If there's no heroes in sight and the person's running back, you can chain them to a sidewall or to a tower or to their fort or something like that, so that you can get that stun and potentially even line up the combo. So it's just thinking of creative ways to use chain.
Yeah,
for sure. I just had a crazy thought though. So you talked about the sidewalls. What is there some logic behind if you're on a team with a KT at all, like even if you're the KT or anyone else, would there be some logic behind just leaving those sidewalls up all game? You just got more chain options.
Sure.
Yeah,
I would think so. Something to think about in quick match because you'll have one on either team anyway. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
I hadn't either.
But last thing here on him, and as Multi said, we've talked about a lot, the skills floor, skill ceiling. Don't let that scare you. This is one of the funnest heroes, I think, to come out in the game. And he is absolutely worth trying out. Even if he's not going to become one of your main heroes, he's fun to just get in and have a blast with. Kyle and the team just really nailed him. So props.
Have a frost blast with him. Yeah. Except don't take Shadowfish.
All right. Moving on to community content this week. TBK, what do you got?
I've got a few fun things. We got some more skin bundles or skin ideas. Again, I'm linking in chat. And of course, all the links I talk about will be in our show notes. But this is like a Servants of the Void bundle. And there's a bunch of like cool shadow skins for a bunch of different Murky, Asmodan, Probius. I love the Cthulhu or the Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
No, it's Cthulhu.
Everyone calls it Cthulhu, but
Cthulhu.
Okay.
That's my nickname for him.
Fair enough.
Cthulhu.
I'll go with that.
Okay.
That, and I called him wrong like years ago, and I just kept saying it like that.
Roll with it.
But Probius is just one giant eye. It looks really
good.
cool.
Yeah.
So go check that out. That's really fun. Also, I finally finished one of my biggest concepts I'd ever done for Ysera. And this is a full concept, abilities, talents, everything on Heroes Hearth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very happy with how it turned out, and I want it in game so badly.
All right.
It'll never happen, but hopefully,
You never know.
maybe.
There may be at least some inspiration drawn from it. And I mean, you did solid work on this thing.
I
in
think
general,
I think the coolest thing that I would like to see from it is the special mount. That is so in my concept, Ysera always in dragon, of course, because dragons, and she has a global fly ability. But the cool thing about this is you can fly to anywhere, but the cooldown is variable based on how far you travel.
Yeah.
So if you say fly from bottom lane to middle lane, based on whatever formula you use to calculate that, you might only have a 20 or 30-second cooldown. Whereas if I flew from the Hall of Storms all the way over to the enemy's core or to the enemy's keep or something like that, I might have a 70-plus second cooldown. So it adds a lot of strategy into how you think of your movement and such. So I think that would be a really cool, like, unique ability concept to get realized at some point for somebody.
Yeah, I like that. I will say,
Me too.
though, I do want something to cause them to be in not human form, but whatever humanoid form at some point, because a lot of those aspects look really cool in their humanoid form.
But
maybe that'll be the dance.
But
let's stick with dragon the rest of the time.
Yeah, they can turn into their human form and dance. That's fine, whatever.
Fair enough.
But dragons.
No, never mind. I want to see the dragon dance too. So
Dragon dance. It's just all dragons all the time.
Yep.
All dragons all the time.
Hey, Michael Udall agrees with you on this one.
I know.
As soon as he said that, I was like, that's.
I was smiling so big.
Oh, yeah, I was sitting there going, yeah, he's preaching to the choir here.
Preaching to the choir. And then finally, a cool thing this Sunday, I will be guesting on Heroes Forge. I believe it's 7 Pacific on A-Move TV. Me and Jeff, Kristen and Kyle are off on vacation, so me and Jeff will be forging. I can't say yet because it's getting announced tomorrow. It's a very big deal, though.
Deathwing.
Okay.
It's not Deathwing, and it's not Ysera. This is a completely new thing. He approached me. He's like, "Who do you want to do?" And I gave him my like top 3 or 4, and he's like, "Ooh, we haven't done this one. This one would be awesome." And so I actually he told me. I was like, "Okay," and I literally went for 2 hours and just built out the kit right then. I just got like a huge spurt of inspiration. So I've had the kit done for forever. So I'm really excited to do that.
Manaroth.
No.
Can you tell us what game it's from? What property?
It is a Warcraft.
Damn it. Yeah, that makes it hard. There's so many.
Yeah. It's not giving too much away. It's a Warcraft character though. So I think it's going to be announced tomorrow.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
Sweet.
We did have a question I really wanted to get to today because with having Udall on and some of the stuff that was talked about in there, but we are running out of time, so we're going to push that to next week because I think it is going to go into some discussion afterwards.
Oh, for sure. Super good question, though.
Yes, it really is. So before we head out here, Multi, why don't you go ahead and tell people where you can be reached?
Well, you can find us in-game by typing /join space LOTS, or you can go to our Discord, probably better yet, which is sticky at the top of our Twitter, at Lords of the Storm. We also have a twitch.tv/Lords of the Storm, where we're live Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Central. So check us out there if you haven't already. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Lords of the Storm podcast. If you want to email us with any feedback or questions or anything like that, lordsofthestorm@outlook.com. Although, of course, we would receive all that on Discord, too. You know how it works. And if you want to help out the show, there's a couple different ways to do it. Again, I can't stress enough, super important, the reviews. If you can take the time, if you're on iTunes, go and leave a 5-star review. That is a huge help to the show in ways that I can't even express in enough time here. And I have even more trouble expressing my gratitude to anyone who has ever even really thought about giving to the Patreon at patreon.com/Lords of the Storm. And for all those who have and will, again, we just love you guys. And I don't mean to just gloss over this part every week because it's super important to me. Means the world to us that you guys just think what we do has enough value to, get on there and even just give a little bit. But no pressure either way.
Did we get a new review?
I don't know. Let me pull that up.
I think we did.
Yeah, while we're
pulling
that
up,
up,
your stuff. I'll pull that thing up there. Okay, yeah.
You can find us individually. You can find myself on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, all the things at GizmoZord. My streaming schedule is a little wonky right now, just while I figure out things with the new work schedule. But I will be continuing to post that stuff whenever I know, as well as Convert to Raid presents the BattleNet News, which is typically Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Central. And it's where we cover all things BattleNet News, heavy on the World of Warcraft. And I believe we may potentially be having a show tomorrow night. Who knows? I don't know. Stay tuned on Twitter. Multi, where can you be reached?
Well, and hey, BattleNet, as the term, is sticking around now.
It is.
So you guys don't have to worry about that stuff anymore.
Yeah, they actually called us and were like,
really?
Yeah, they're like, where your show is such a big deal that we just don't want to make you guys change your name.
Oh,
so we're
yeah,
gonna change back to Yep.
Yeah, of course. Yep. So, okay, I can be found on Twitter at Multizord, and I also want to show you guys the other Zord Network show called The Cavalry. It's on Twitter at The Cavalry Show, but they are live Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. on twitch.tv/The Cavalry Show. And yep, just still going strong over there. If you guys want to check them out, there's a ton of stuff coming up with Overwatch here, of course, and new maps and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, see what they got to say about it for sure.
Yeah, and if you watch this show live, they are live directly in front of us, and they're hosted on our channel. So just stop by and check that out. TBK, where can you be reached?
You can find me on Twitter at TBKZord, twitch.tv/TBKZord. Streaming schedule right now, usually Mondays, sometimes other days as well. I've got my emote coming soon, which is super exciting. And then, of course, Heroes Forge this Sunday.
That's right. And I got that review real quick. So this is from Satyr, which is awesome. Like, really driving home the point. I'm a satyr, guys. I hope they wear a sign as well in real life. But yeah, no, super cool. So Satyr says, oh, that was fun to say. Truthfully, I don't really play Heroes much, but this is a great podcast. I enjoy hearing their opinions and their talent builds. It's interesting. So yeah, that's sweet.
We appreciate it. We do.
Yeah, we do. Absolutely.
We want to give a special thanks to our patron producer, Ouroboros Sword, for helping support the show as always. And again, pick KT up. So good. We'll see you guys same time, same place next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Central. Until then, have a good one in the Nexus. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Enough. I shall do no more.